feel lonely deep inside, and I wanna talk about it. Can I trust you on my side? Cause I wanna talk about it. Yo, can you keep a secret? Keep a secret. Can you keep a secret? No, keep a secret. Can you keep a secret? I wanna trust you. I wanna trust you. So can you keep my secret? You see this road gets tough, gets cold, but still never lose that hope. You got everything it takes and more. You're not alone in this war. Help is on the way every other day. You can lean on my shoulders, cause you are superhuman. You got my trust, and together we can be stronger. So we can talk about it. Yeah, we can talk about it, yeah. So we can talk about it, yeah. Let's talk about it, yeah. I feel lonely deep inside, and I wanna talk about it. Can I trust you on my side? Cause I wanna talk about it. Yo, can you keep a secret? Keep a secret. Can you keep a secret? Keep a secret. Can you keep a secret? I wanna trust you. I wanna trust you. So can you keep my secret?
Hi, good morning, Juanita. Welcome to Mike on the Mic. First question is, what has been the COVID experience been like for you over in England?
Personally, it's been one of the best experiences of my life for the year 2020. People may ask, why is that? For me, I have, by the grace of God, moved and stayed with family members. So that means I don't have to worry about the added expense of paying rent. I'm fortunate enough to have paid employment, and so I'm working from home. And from commuting an hour and 20 minutes, I now commute 5 minutes from my bedroom to the office next door. And what's really great about it is I have a lot more free time. So I've been able to pick up some ventures, some of the things that I've longed to do for quite some time. There's charities, even businesses, including bakeries and food businesses that work with the marginalized. And that has been tremendously inspiring for me. And also it's been useful to understand some of the risks that would be involved in such a venture. Another thing I'm working on is restaurant stickers, and my idea is to roll this out in the UK as well as in Trinidad and Tobago. And these stickers will have human trafficking information as well as the relevant hotline number and bilingual translation depending on where the stickers are. The plan and desire is to have these stickers in every single restroom or washroom so that when a trafficking victim goes inside that bathroom, they are able to obtain the information they need, memorize the number, and to get help so they can be rescued. And then finally, I'm also working on trainings. I believe it's really important to educate people on the knowledge that we have. I believe that it's for us to tell others and to protect and safeguard the people in our world. And with the lockdown, domestic violence has increased, abuse has increased, and exploitation, specifically online exploitation, has increased. And therefore creating and rolling out free Zoom trainings. And so every Thursday around 3 p.m. Trinidad and Tobago time, I have a 1-hour Zoom training on child abuse, safeguarding, and human trafficking. And then following that, I have an hour and a half longer discussion and Q&A. So the week of 14th of May, that Thursday will be the third week. And then I'm planning to re-roll the whole program again and do a cycle every 3 weeks.
Wow. So you got a lot of information in there in a little space of time, and that's good. First question, what is your connection to Trinidad? You're in England now, but what is your connection to Trinidad?
Around 5 years ago, I came to Trinidad and Tobago as a result of a judges conference. I am a New York attorney. I have been a licensed attorney for 5 years, pro bono, and people often ask, why is that? And quite simply, I'm a British citizen. My parents are from Jamaica, but I'm British born. I'm a US lawyer, so I don't have a green card, a visa, or work permit. So I'm a pro bono lawyer. And whilst I was in the US, I would connect and network with other attorneys, other judges. And whilst I was doing that, I heard of the Black Bar Association, which is connected with judges and lawyers throughout the country. They invited me to be a speaker on human trafficking in Tobago. I volunteered to do so. Why? It was my first time coming to the islands. I thought, why not have this opportunity to be amongst people who are similarly qualified like myself, similar expertise, and of course, to get a vacation. I mean, who would say no to that? I came out, I prepared and delivered my presentation in a very short span of time. And honestly, I don't think I did very well, but I didn't let that stop me from pursuing and continuing to do that work when I traveled over to Trinidad. I spent a week in Trinidad and I spoke and shared the message of empowerment on human trafficking and abuse. And I enjoyed it so much that I decided to come back a week later. And every time that I'd speak, although I didn't charge, I would collect donations. I'm a born-again Christian, and so I tithe 10% of everything that I get at church on Sunday. Doesn't matter what church I go to, I tithe 10% of that. However, when I counted money that was left over after tithing, that money was exactly enough for me to return to Trinidad. And so every year that I come, I speak, I tithe 10% of what I receive, and that money pays for my flight back and my flight back. And I've been coming ever since.
And how many times have you been to Trinidad?
I've been coming for the last 4 years, and I usually come for about 2 trips per year. Last year, I believe I came once, but in the prior years, I came for 2 trips each year. And I usually come just before Carnival. So that would be around January or February time. Why is that? Because when we have Carnival or the Super Bowl or any major event, that is when the demand for prostitutes goes up. And so therefore, there is a higher chance of trafficking and exploitation to take place. So I arrive before Carnival, educate people so they can safeguard themselves and their family, and then I leave before the flight prices triple, basically, before they go up.
Okay. Where did this passion for being an advocate for sex trafficking, where did that come from?
I was a victim of childhood sexual abuse, and because of my own personal story and because of my relationship with God and Jesus Christ, I decided that instead of being bitter and negative about what had happened to me in the past, to do something productive. As it says in the Bible, what the enemy intended for evil, God intended for good. And so I've taken my story and used that to educate people around the world, to empower them and inspire them, because I want people to understand that your past does not have to dictate your future. No matter what may have happened to you, that does not mean to say that your life will spiral out of control. But I understand very well that as a victim and survivor of abuse, that I do have vulnerability and could have become a trafficking victim. And so that is probably where that passion and desire for fighting human trafficking comes from.
So you're also an example and a testimony into that, even if you're a victim, which is sadly, there's so many victims out there that you can't take that negativity and turn it around into being a voice or being something positive or getting an actual community that could stand up and fight against it, right?
I definitely believe that. And I want to stand out from the crowd and make a difference, because there are a lot of victims and survivors in the world who believe that they are doomed because of things that they're told, the way that they're treated. What about the stigma that may be attached? And quite commonly, people who do not understand abuse or abusers have the false assumption that a child who's abused will then go on to become an abuser. And so I want people to understand that is not always the case. There are many people who are doing amazing work around the world because of something that happened to them in their past. They've decided to become a helper instead of becoming someone who is more harmful to those who are vulnerable.
Okay, and let me just get some context. What kind of what branch of law did you study, or are you qualified at?
When I studied the New York bar, I studied that at home, so I self-studied. And unfortunately, I failed on 2 occasions, and on the 3rd occasion, I did pass. In New York, you have to study every single topic and subject. So I covered all the subjects in the bar, and if I was a US citizen or had my citizenship or even papers like a visa or green card, I could set up my own legal practice as soon as I get my graduation papers. Unfortunately, as an immigrant, that is not possible. However, when I'm in New York, I provide free legal advice to individuals who are homeless and immigrants, including illegal immigrants. And quite recently, just before the lockdown, I was in New York giving free legal advice to an African-American client. And I was really trying to support him with his issue. But I'm sad to say that he was unhappy with the advice I gave him. He verbally assaulted me, and I was afraid for my safety. Fortunately, he did not physically attack me, but at that time, I was really afraid that would happen. It saddened me, but I'll be very transparent in saying it has not put me off from going back to that center, nor has it put me off from wanting to build a bakery and hiring people just like this individual. I believe in second chances, just as the God that I serve, and there are many people around the world who have not been given a second chance because of things that they may have done in their past.
Okay. So let me get into the main emphasis or the main focus of the interview. You have a website, changingcases.org. What is it about?
My website is a place for people to come and to be inspired, to see the work that I've been doing around the world completely unpaid, and to decide, you know what, if Miss Headley can do that without a budget, what more can I do with an income? What more can I do with a support system? My desire is to change lives, hence the name Changing Cases. I'm also a qualified chef. I worked in United Nations when I was around 18 years of age, and I trained as a chef there. Because of my passion and love for food, I want to take that and I want to use it to empower people through employment. I've had the privilege and opportunity to spend time with young children in the Philippines. Some are victims of abuse and exploitation. Others are allegedly perpetrators of abuse, including 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds that allegedly have committed sexual offenses against their peers. Whilst in the Philippines, I had the opportunity to volunteer at a shelter. There was a boys' shelter and a girls' shelter, and in the boys' shelter, they were in fact juvenile delinquents. And so I had the privilege and opportunity to teach them baking. And that really inspired me to continue to pursue my dream, because I really was able to make a difference in their lives. And I believe that every person deserves to have an opportunity to better themselves. And so the website is there to inspire people and allow individuals to see what work I'm doing and to support it, whether that's financially, through prayer, or even through becoming a part of my very, very small team.
I noticed, the main reason why I reached out to you, you created a song. Give me some context of the song and its creation, and what was the main message behind the music?
The song that I composed, called Can You Keep a Secret, it's in line with the book that I have written. I composed this book and got the idea out of a panel program that I did on Trinity TV in Trinidad, which is a Catholic station. And my co-panelists asked the question, can you keep a secret? Which is my tagline. And when he asked that question, it brought up something that I've always been trying to drive home to my audiences. My desire was to actually use this as a tool and a medium to get people to change the way that they respond to that question. Having been a victim of abuse and having asked the question, can you keep a secret? And getting the response, it depends, repeatedly, and having asked the question subsequently as an adult to audiences around the world and getting the same responses, I realized that I need to do something different to drum home the point that when anybody asks the question, can you keep a secret? You need to respond yes with your mouth, and it depends with your head. Because from my experience and having talked to survivors in TT and around the world, when a person is trying to tell you something, when they are trying to confide in you, they will use a means or medium that makes them feel comfortable. Whether it's two adults, two peers, the question may be formulated differently, but the long and short of it, they are trying to tell you something. So when I talk to people as a professional, I ask, is this confidential? As an attorney, that is what I ask. What about two adults, two co-workers? What would they say? Is this going to stay in the room? Is this going to stay between us? I believe that the world would be a very different place if we all responded yes to the secret. And so I have a song composed that I would love to go worldwide so that people hear it, they sing it, and then they respond differently. And then the trailer that goes with that, it describes my personal story of being a victim of sexual abuse. But more than that, I want to use that book trailer as a tool to get people around the world to understand grooming. Because I believe far too often, children are told by their parents or caregivers, nobody should touch your body parts. But usually, I believe, and I'm convinced, 99% of the time, that is not enough. Why? Because I believe those children are groomed. If a child is told and understands what to communicate and when to communicate, what is stopping them? Because not every survivor of abuse has been through a situation where they are threatened into silence. I was not threatened into silence, and many victims and survivors were not. However, when you are groomed, it happens so gradually you don't realize, and then the silence simply comes. Therefore, when someone asks that question, we need to respond yes, so we can get them the help immediately.
Okay, so the message is for when victims speaking out to somebody, they keep the secret and try to find help for the victim. Is that what you're trying to say?
Definitely. The moral of the song and the moral of the book trailer, when someone asks the question, can you keep a secret? Respond yes with your mouth, and it depends with your head. And then what you need to do after hearing that secret, tell that person, child or adult, I have to break your trust, and then you phone the authorities. You do not phone the accused. I heard you've been sexually abusing your stepdaughter, Juanita. He will deny it, or she will deny it and hide the evidence. Even if that was your biological spouse, and that is the biological son or daughter, biological child of that person, whenever you get an allegation, do not ask the perpetrator. You need to go to the police and let them investigate, let them gather the evidence, and then the truth will come out. Because too often there are cases where a person is brought into a room, whether that's a church, a school, a conversation takes place, he or she denies the abuse, and nobody is ever able to uncover the truth because there is simply no evidence.
Oh, wow. Wow. So, there seems to be a marriage between the book and your trailer on YouTube or the song. How did you go from, all right, I created a book and now creating a song? How did that thought process go for you?
To be completely transparent, I went to bed one night when I was staying in a house not too far from St. James. So I was staying with a friend, and when I went to bed that evening 2 or so years ago, I believe and I am convinced that the Holy Spirit woke me out of my sleep and told me everything you see in that book trailer. Every scene that was shot, it was given to me. Although it depicts my story, not everything you see is exactly what happened to me. In my case, I was abused during my sleep. My stepfather taught me to cook and he taught me to ride a bike, and I did fail my exams. But not everything you see there is completely accurate to my personal story. However, God provided me with the exact script. And so my desire, since the book idea came out of Trinidad, was to film it in Trinidad. Unfortunately, I could not get a team together in the short time. However, when I was in Ghana, I reached out to a lot of people, and complete strangers all turned up on one day, and we shot this all at a church. But everything you see, it literally came to me, if you want to call it in a night dream, not a nightmare, a night dream, it came to me. And I love the trailer because even though I didn't exactly go through that, the point is many children go through something similar, and grooming is the theme. My stepfather let me stay up late. He abused me in my sleep. He gave me candy, taught me to cook, and taught me to ride a bike. But the scenes that show me being abused in the daytime, that did not happen. But for other children, that is their reality.
Okay, wow, very strong message. That take the words all right out of my head, yes. Wow, because how do you respond to something like that? If somebody sees the video and they get that motivation for action, what will you tell them to do? As a victim or even as a listener, what do you tell them to do?
The first thing they need to do, they need to find somebody that they can confide in. If that's a victim or a survivor, they need to find somebody that they can confide in, and that person needs to obviously respond appropriately. And so in my book, I share with individuals how to respond when you hear of an allegation. The first thing is to hide any shock or anger, because if you respond in that way, the child will automatically think that your reaction is about them. And the best thing to do is to allow the child to speak uninterrupted. Do not ask questions. Once you've separated, write down everything they've said, inform the authorities. But it's really important to give them that freedom to be able to speak. When you start to ask questions, if that child finally does get to court, it causes issues in cross-examination as to the legitimacy of the evidence that has been given. So it's really important to listen, to give them a safe space to talk. And of course, for a victim or survivor who watches that, my desire is for them to identify. Recently, in one of my Zoom trainings, I talked about grooming. I even described instances where I, as an adult, had been groomed by a pastor when I was in Ghana. And when I explained the grooming, nothing that he had done was sexual. It may have been a little bit inappropriate, but it wasn't sexual. I wasn't comfortable. And as I explained the situation to my listeners when I did my program on Zoom, there was one listener who actually told me, as you were sharing throughout this 2.5-hour program, it actually brought back to mind experiences that I have had, and I would like to talk with you further. The point is, this trailer is more than just telling my story. It is more than grooming. I'm hoping it's going to help victims of historic abuse to identify, to be triggered, so that they can get the help and the healing they need to deal with whatever has happened to them in the past.
Wow, I'm just trying to process the information while you speak. It's a lot of information. It's a very heavy topic, and I don't want to be, heavy-handed and not understand the information being presented. What would be your words of advice to parents now who in this stay-at-home situation, and even kids now in the stay-at-home situation, because there are instances and we are hearing reports that there is more domestic violence and more violence happening at the homes with the stay-at-home because of COVID-19. What would be your words of advice to families or even victims or even people who can't help? What would be your words?
I feel it's important for people to have conversations, because what happens too often, things are going on right under your nose and you simply don't realize. Even with inappropriate behaviors and normalizing, what about if your child says, I don't feel comfortable going to uncle's house whilst you're at work because you're a nurse during the virus? At the end of the day, you've got to listen to your children. You've got to explore. From my experience, I have found the vast majority of parents, not all, but the vast majority, are very impatient with their children and do not listen to their children. And the issue with that, when you do not listen to your child, well, the pedophile will listen to them. And that is one of the greatest vulnerabilities. Let's even think about a young girl or woman who dates a man 10 or 20 years older. If you were to ask her, what is the reason, as I have asked many times myself, she often says, it's because he listens to me. It's really important for you to listen to your children without comment, without thought, without response. Because when you do not do that and you simply start to attack, you simply start to attack or assume, the child will close down. What I always educate people, with all things, you need to ask the question why. If a young girl is promiscuous, ask yourself why. I know of a young girl in Tobago who's promiscuous. It was uncovered she'd been a victim of sexual abuse. I know of a young boy in Trinidad who would come to school early and have sex in the back of the classroom. Now, when people were there calling him promiscuous, what they didn't know, he was a victim of sexual abuse by his nanny when he was a child. What about a young girl or woman who's unmarried and she gets pregnant at a young age outside of marriage? When I was in Tobago, I heard of a woman who was raped by her cousin. When somebody is pregnant, instead of judging her, you should ask yourself mentally, who is the father? At the end of the day, when you're seeing behaviors that do not look right, whether it's in another family member, an adult, or even a child, ask yourself why. If uncle or auntie, because women do this too, likes to spend quality time with her niece, nephew in the shower or the bathroom, ask yourself why. When there are small children pulling down their skirt or their pants, ask yourself why. Often, parents and adults will laugh. I have never found that funny. The question I have is, who else are they entertaining? Because I know for me and most people in the world, we were taught how to dress and undress in private. So when a child is doing that, or when a child is engaging sexually, in other words, they're engaging sexually with another child, let's say they're 5, or they're saying things or acting out, when you see that, you've got to ask yourself why. Cousin, and her cousin was 3 years of age. But the question again is, where would the 3-year-old learn that behavior from? Instead of chastising that child, instead of telling her off, understand the behavior. I know of a young girl in Trinidad who told me, and I quote, I'm having sex with my brother. When her parents found out, he was her half-brother, They chastised both of them. They told them, do not have sex again. And they continue to have sex with each other. Telling your children off will not stop them from having sex or being promiscuous. You need to understand the behavior so you can get them the help so that they can be healthy and whole children.
I want to zoom in now on the Zoom training that you're offering. What was the reasoning and the logic behind getting your information out now as they stay at home? And what has been the response of you doing these every Tuesday, having these seminars via Zoom?
With regards to the Zoom training, again, I have to attribute it to God and the Holy Spirit. A few days before the program was actually launched, which was on Thursday, I went to bed, which is usually the time that God likes to get my attention. And when I went to bed, I couldn't sleep because I had all these ideas coming in my mind. And the Lord gave me the name, Lockdown Lessons. He gave me the slogan, do you have children? Work with children, connect with children. He gave me the tagline. He gave me every single idea. The first poster I created on the 30th of April, I believe, all of the information there literally came to me when I was about to go to sleep, the name, everything. The Lord just gave it to me. He also gave me scenarios. So whilst I was in bed, I'm there writing all this stuff down on my phone, and he gave me scenarios. So one of those scenarios goes like this. If your colleague or co-worker comes up to you and says that he has a video of his 15-year-old student having sex, which she sent to him, how would you respond? Now, that is based on a true story. In fact, an experience I had in front of Movie Town, Port of Spain. So all these scenarios are things that I may have known about or experienced personally, but the Lord kind of flooded my brain and gave me all of these scenarios that I'm writing down late on Sunday. On Monday, I reached out to one of my volunteers in Ghana. I said, I need you to make me a poster. By Tuesday, we had a poster, and by Thursday, the program was rolled out. I only had about 2 days of advertising, and it was very intense. In the UK, the lockdown is due to end, allegedly, on the 7th of May. That was the date we were given. So I knew for me to roll out this program, I've got to do it on the 30th of April to enable me to at least have 2 sessions before the lockdown ends. I had been to a few Zoom trainings in the past, so I realized that it was really important for me to be able to do these programs at a suitable time when people have finished from work. The times of the programs I had attended were 7 or 8 p.m. UK time. So I set up the program for 8 p.m., advertised as best as I could with my hundreds of different phones, and by the grace of God, I had 30 people in attendance on the Thursday. I was amazed by that. 24 people signed up, 4 didn't turn up, new people joined, and we had a total of 30. Then my second program on the 7th of May, I had over 20 people turn up. And what was quite nice, the session is an hour long, but because I didn't understand Zoom, it was my first time, I made people aware that there was an additional hour and a half available on the room. And so the session ended up going on for 2.5 hours. Since then, every session is an hour long and then continues on for an hour and a half. And what I can say, the responses have been tremendous. I've had people coming to the room from Trinidad, from India, from all around the world, from Ghana, from the UK, the US. And everyone who has spoken to me personally has commended me for what I've done, have told me how inspired they are, how they're now going to look at things differently, that they can safeguard their children or students better. I have been so amazed at how this simple program that I set up with a couple of days has managed to impact people's lives tremendously. And for me, that's amazing because realistically speaking, knowledge is important. Without knowledge, we cannot protect ourselves or others. And as it says in the Bible, people perish for lack of knowledge. So my aim and desire was to provide free trainings to people around the world so they can protect themselves. And then once the lockdown ends, to be able to visit schools and churches in person and to give a more extended 5-day or 3-day training.
Oh, my final question, what is the link between child abuse and then sex trafficking or human trafficking? What is that link?
What people don't realize, when a child is abused at a very young age, they develop ACEs, adverse childhood experience. So this is any form of abuse, and the abuse actually affects the development of the brain. And so that is why you may have individuals who are adults with severe mental health, and it's because of what they have gone through, the trauma they experienced as a child. What sometimes happens when a child is abused at a young age, let's say 5 years of age, which is a common age when they may be abused. Abused at 5, and then later on, let's say around 10, they are abused again, re-victimized. And then in some instances, when they are teenage, let's say they turn 16, they would enter into a relationship with their boyfriend or girlfriend. But of course, in this day and age, it could be girlfriend, girlfriend, boyfriend, boyfriend. That relationship would sometimes, not always, but sometimes become sexual. That girl or boy, their heart is broken. As a result of what they have been through, being abused, being taken advantage of, that person may sometimes end up on a destructive path. Now, some of these survivors of abuse become re-victimized again later on into adulthood, enter into relationships that are abusive, maybe not sexually, but physically. Some of these individuals sometimes, I'll say that again, sometimes become gay or lesbian or transgender, sometimes. Some of these individuals become prostitutes or escorts. Some of them decide to work in a sexpresso cafe, which is a coffee shop where men can get their sex acts performed. Some of them decide to have sex with nobody and simply abstain. But what you have to understand is that it's a pattern of abuse and victimization that often dictates the course of their life if they don't get the help and the healing. Now, at the back of that, as a result of being abused, that child becomes vulnerable. Now, that vulnerable, in my opinion, places a target on their back. Because when a person is abused, sometimes they develop low self-esteem, insecurity. What about obesity? When a child is insecure, quite often we can see that. And a pimp or trafficker would see that, and he would groom her because he would tell her how beautiful she looks, and he would express love to her. The sad reality, having traveled the world with this message, is a lot of people don't even know what love is. When I ask them, they say it's a feeling. In the Bible, in 1 Corinthians 13, it says love is patient, love is kind. It doesn't envy, doesn't boast. And the list continues. I encourage people to replace the word love with the name of somebody they love, or somebody they love, somebody they love, or someone who loves them. So for example, John is patient. John is kind. Quite often, the people in our world who we love or they love us do not treat us kindly, are not patient, are rude, and have envy. And I say that because quite often, but not always, when a pimp or trafficker has groomed that victim of abuse because he sees her vulnerability, he says to her, if you love me, you'll have sex with me. Then they will have sex. Then he'll say, if you love me, you'll have sex with my friends because we need to pay the bills. If you love me, you'll have sex with 20 men so that we can pay the rent. At the end of the day, what commonly happens is these pimps and traffickers use love. They see the vulnerability, and a lot of us, even those who've not been abused, are looking for love, often in the wrong places. Pimps and traffickers see that and they take advantage. So what you have to understand, a person who's been abused will not be trafficked, but is more susceptible and likely to be because of the vulnerabilities. But if they've got the help and the healing, their brain is restored. I feel that the reason why there are so many destructive adults in the world, destructive to self or to others, I believe that is usually because of trauma, things in the past that have not been dealt with. I believe that a lot of people under the influence of drugs and alcohol, a lot of people with addiction, it's because they're trying to mask the pain. What about a man who beats his wife? Domestic violence. Domestic violence is wrong on all counts. But what I have noticed with a lot of survivors of abuse, a lot of them have anger issues. Now let's imagine a husband is beating his wife because he has anger issues. Now a person on face value will see him as an abusive person, which he is, and then they may say, do you know what, they need to divorce and break up. That may be a solution, yes. However, the real solution to the problem of his anger is dealing with the childhood trauma. If he can get therapy, counseling, prayer, or healing and deal with the trauma, he would no longer have anger issues. It is not an overnight fix. Many survivors who do get made whole through therapy and counseling, it is years of work. But I try to encourage people to understand every person in your life, no matter who they are, has a history and has a past. Every behavior you see, for you to understand it, get to the root. Promiscuity, abusiveness, anger, disrespect, whatever you see, where is it coming from? Once you can work that out, then you can help that person to change their attitudes and to become someone who's a more positive and productive member of society. So I'll say it again, abuse is not okay, but we've got to look at the root. Why is he beating his wife? There is never any justifiable reason for him to do that. But if it's a result of the abuse he went through, he needs help to deal with his past so he can have a positive future with his wife.
Okay. Well, with that, I would like to end. Is there anything else you would like to add?
My message is about domestic trafficking. What does domestic trafficking look like? In Trinidad, you could be born in Port of Spain, live in Port of Spain, and be trafficked in Port of Spain. You would not even have to leave your bedroom if you're trafficked by your mother. So I want people to understand my message applies to every single one of you who are hearing my voice. Because far too often when I come to the island and give my free talks, I never charge, the numbers are few and far between. And this is something that we need to care about. Too many girls are going missing in both islands. Where are they? There is a question mark. They're similar age, similar feature. Where are these girls? For all we know, they are trafficked. They haven't run off with a boyfriend. Because realistically speaking, why hasn't anybody seen anything? People don't just disappear into thin air. And I believe whoever has taken them knows them. It could be the maxi driver. It could be the person in KFC. The point I'm trying to make, nobody is seeing anything. So that raises suspicions. And for all we know, these women and girls are still in Trinidad because you can be trafficked from your house. We don't have to even be in a basement. We don't even have to be in a home. People can be kept in confined spaces, including cages. That is not always the case, but it's important to understand these girls have gone missing, never seen or heard of again. They may not have even left the country. And if we understand that, we'll become more vigilant of the people around us so that we can protect that next young girl from being trafficked.
All right, well, with that, I would like to say thank you, Juanita. Thank you. This has been a lot of information. I hope the public out there understands, ingests, and be able to at least have a plan of action if something like this is affecting somebody that they know. I like your tagline with "Can you keep a secret?" It makes a lot of sense because I think the core of victims and they're speaking out is the level of trust they have in the person that they're speaking to. I think that's just it in a nutshell of what they're trying to say. But I want to say thank you. Continue with your message. It is very much needed out there. You're doing your man service. I mean, it's interesting that you say it's the Holy Spirit that gives you your message because that means you're working for a higher power.
That's definitely right. That's why I have to do it. Even if I want to sleep, I've got to obey God. No doubt about it.
I hear you. So I want to wish you luck in the future.
Thank you.
And I hope that those who do get the message, if it is that they can have an impact or even have a voice for somebody who feels that there is no voice, and we can make a difference to society out there. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.